Welcome. This is the Central Florida Computer Society and the Sarasota Technology User Group, WinSIG, or the Windows Special Interest Group, for Sunday, October 9th, 2022. I'm Hewie Poplock, and welcome. We've got a nice crowd, almost 60 people, and I'm sure some more will join us. We have a full slate of information to go over. We've been conducting a nice social half hour between 1 and 1:30 Eastern time, between the hour and half hour, and a lot of good information and just getting to know each other a little bit. And now we're going to get down to our Windows SIG meeting. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen with an extension. It's called Open Multiple URLs. I've already populated it with all of the things I want to cover today. And all I have to do is click Open URLs. And you'll see at the top, for whatever reason, I think it's opening 2 of everything. But that's okay in case I close one by mistake. And they're all opening. And let's take a look first at, while those are opening, let's go ahead and go to Hewie.net where the list is. And we'll go to the WinSIG page. Now, something unique happened when I set this up this week is I was out of space. The program that I use to create my website only allows me so many items to a page. And so what I have to do, if you come down here to the bottom, you will see I have archived now January to June of 2021, July to December of 2021, and now I've archived also January to June of 2022. So we are starting with July on this page, and we'll run till the end of the year. So if you want to go back further, you may. And but here are the items that we're set to cover for today. I've opened them in this browser, but you can go to them. These are all links to each of the pages I'm going to talk about so that you can go back. And if we don't get to each one, that you can go and check on your own, please do. I spent some time trying to put this together, and let's take a look at the first article. And if you remember what what we're going to do in here is come up here and enter the immersive view, and then I will make it larger so that you should be able to see it. And the article is Microsoft finally confirms release date for Windows 10's major 2022 update. So Windows 10 did not update the 22H2 version like Windows 11 did earlier last month. So in the midst of Windows 11 gaining its first major update, Microsoft also confirmed that a 22H2 update for Windows 10 is scheduled to arrive sometime this month. However, if you're looking for huge features to further hold you off from upgrading to Windows 11, you're out of luck. Microsoft has confirmed that it stopped working on new features for the previous release of Windows, which with its full focus on Windows 11. Although many of you can't update to Windows 11, and so you can stay with Windows 10 until 2025, and then it will stop being supported and updated. But my suggestion to you is start saving your pennies for a newer computer so that by 2025 you can get a machine that will handle Windows 11, or if you so desire, you might want to consider a Chromebook. But since this is the Windows SIG, we're not going to talk about that today. But don't wait until the 2025 to upgrade. Granted, Windows 11 has its fair share of criticisms, mainly at the taskbar, which brings one of the most significant changes to the start menu in years. However, there are apps that can let you customize it to your liking, such as Start 11, and you can change this back to Windows 10 taskbar you know and love, or even earlier versions if you wanted to. So there's a program called Start 11 that you might want to look at. Yet the improvements go further in the recent Windows 11 2022 update, with an improved snap layout to better arrange your windows, and in another upcoming update, tabs to File Explorer are finally arriving. So we're going to cover some of the things in Windows 11 in some of these others. So I'm going to go ahead and close that window down. And let's see, before we do that, let's go ahead and stop the share. Any questions, comments? How many, just for the people who have their cameras on, how many have Windows, still have Windows 10?
I have both.
I have both.
And quite a few of you still have Windows 10, so that's why I wanted to make sure you knew that there was an update coming. Steve Parker, you have a question?
Yeah, it says they announced the date, but it doesn't actually say what the date is.
No, and it'll probably be one of the update Tuesdays. So I would look for it on a Tuesday. Just go into your Windows update page in your settings and just take a look and see if it's available. They probably won't force it on you at first anyway. So let's get back. If you'll put your hand down, Steve, and let's, whoops. I guess I got
Marianne McCollum had a question in chat. How do you know if you're able to update to Windows 11 on your Windows 10 computer?
There was a program that you could get from Microsoft that would tell you what whether you have the equipment that will allow you to do it. I don't have the link handy, Mike. If you have a chance to,
I'll find it, or Bob G will. One of the two of us.
Isn't it on the Windows update page? Health check, I think they call it.
it may be
Yeah, it
there
is.
as well. Yeah.
Yes, that's what it's called, the health check.
Well, and every time you update, it will tell you that either you do or do not qualify based on your system for Windows 11. Mine does. Every time I update on the Windows 10, it says you're not able to get Windows 11.
Yeah, since I've already updated, I can't tell. So
Yeah. Well, but don't you get regular updates? I get.
oh yeah, I'm
Mine
getting
seems-
updates. Yeah, I'm getting updates too.
Yeah,
Windows-
and you get a
Windows.
notice with every time I do that. It tells me my machine will not handle Windows 11.
Yeah, Mike just put let's see, Walter just put a link into the PC Health. Okay, so Windows 11 is 22H2 is here, and it gets an annual update. It got it on September 20th, plus monthly extra features. I have not tried most of the features, and a lot of them are going to be released next month. Why they didn't include them or why they didn't wait, I guess, who knows? It's Microsoft. But after Windows 22H2, it'll have an ongoing annual releases. So instead of being twice a year, it looks like it's going to be once a year will be the big releases. There's rumors that there's going to be a Windows 12 somewhere along the way. Who knows? They don't tell us. Let's see, some of the features. Let's see, I didn't make that larger again. Oh, I didn't actually do this. Okay, there we go. That's better. Even more features during the Patch Tuesday updates. One of the things, let's move down here. There's going to be tabs in File Explorer, which everybody who has been testing it says it's great. There's going to be a new interface for the Photos app. They're going to add nearby PCs to the share options, and you're going to be able to make a phone call or create an event when you copy a phone number or a date. These will all be in the October updates. One of the things that they talk about, and I think we'll see this in the next article, so let's go to that. Close this one. And let's see, in this one, system-wide live captions. I haven't tried this, but it says videos, podcasts, live radio streams. If you're meant to hear it, Windows 11 will try to transcribe it on the screen for you. Features like these, which can be hugely helpful to the hard of hearing and people who leave subtitles on all the time, are more common on smartphones than on computers. But thankfully, this is starting to change. Similar feature will arrive in Apple's Mac OS Ventura software update in October. I have not tried that. Has anyone here tried that yet? No, I guess I don't hear anybody.
Yeah, I have.
Who is that?
Gary, over here.
Okay. Well, right now we're sharing the screen. So, Gary, have you found it helpful? And when have you tried? What have you tried it with?
Very much. Actually, just this morning, I went to go look in a bunch of pictures, and I mean, like, 100,000 pictures, literally. And I just typed in a name, and it found something that was printed in it, automatically turned that into text, and made it searchable.
That's great.
As far as like a podcast, I can suddenly read all the podcasts on a screen.
That is helpful and good to know. And for some of you, maybe a good reason to move to Windows 11.
And I know this is I've got both Windows 11 as well as Windows 10. And yes, I run Apple products and Linux, but I will tell you some of it's been extremely helpful.
There's customizable start menu, and this is what the start menu looks like for those of you who are not in 11. You can move some of these things around. You can add things. So if, let's see, I want to move this over here. I thought you can do that. Yeah. So you can move things around now. And if you click on all apps, you see all the apps. And if you just click in the type here, you'll get some of the top apps that you have used, and you can type in whatever one you want. So if you type in SE, you will start getting anything that starts with SE. In this case, settings will come up. Voice control for your PC. This feature technically isn't finished yet. Microsoft refers to it as a preview, but voice access was built in to help people control their computers with spoken words, not keystrokes or mouse clicks. There's touch gestures. I don't have, on my desktop, I don't have a touch screen any longer. Mine died. I used to have a 27-inch touch screen, and I loved it. I miss it, but with those of you who have laptops, a lot of you have touch screens, so there's a lot more things that you can do, a lot of gestures and so on. And there's some built-in camera effects. Even if I have tested these, I couldn't really show you because we're using the camera for the Zoom meeting. Not all Windows 11 new features are easy to access as others. And again, how can you get the update? And it goes in and talks about that. And that's the end of that article. And the next article on Windows 11, there's more security features. One of the features that they have is if you start to type in a password that you have saved in, I believe it's in the Microsoft or the, you've got it saved on your computer. If you type it into an email, it's going to come up and give you a warning. Hey, you're typing in a password in a non-secure area. Don't do that. So it's going to help with phishing protection.
The caveat to that one.
Okay, Bob, go ahead.
Well, it only works if you use a password to sign into your computer. If you're using facial recognition or some other format, that doesn't work.
Okay, thank you. And Task Manager has been redesigned in Windows 11. I know Bob uses the test one, so he's able to do some of the things. And he actually did a video that I don't know if you can see my taskbar at the bottom, but if I right mouse click, it only says taskbar settings. Bob in his video shows you when you right mouse click on your taskbar, it'll also say Task Manager. That will be added in one of these updates this month for the rest of us. He's on the test version, so he got to see that and use it. But the Task Manager has changed quite a bit. And to access the Task Manager, there's several ways you can do it. But if you right mouse click on the Start button, you can go right to it and go here. Let's take a look at the Task Manager. It is somewhat different because now instead of having everything in a bar across the top, it's along the side, and you can. Let's see how I did that. You can make that so it doesn't show, and you can click and go to various things in the Task Manager. Why isn't it doing it? There we go. We got a lot going on here. And you can go to the app history. And the one thing I like in Task Manager is this is where you go to look at all the startup apps you have, and you can take a look at what's starting when you start your computer. And if you have a certain thing that you really don't need when you start, let's see, you can right mouse click and you can disable it. You can open the file location. You can search online for it, and you can look at the properties. So I don't need that to start up, and I disabled it. So next time I start my computer, that won't start up in the background. And if I need it, all I have to do is start it. So it doesn't delete the program. It only stops it from starting when you start your computer. So if your computer starts very slowly and goes out, and you got to go get a cup of coffee and come back, and maybe it'll be ready for you. One of the things you want to look at are your startup apps and see what's loading. If you don't know what it is, leave it alone or search for it and see what it does. But some of these things are part of the operating system or part of programs that you use, and it may not tell you right away, and you may not be able to identify it right away, but it may be something that is needed when you start your system. So be careful when you're doing that. Like OmniPage, which is an OCR program, I really don't need that enabled when I start. So I could disable that. And I'm sure that's a large program. And so it would be good for me to disable it. Under users, most of you're the only user, and I am on mine. Under details, this is everything is running, and this is where some of the scam artists take you, because you might see some things that aren't working properly. There might be something, and they also go to services. It may show that it's something happened or something stopped, and they try to scare you that things aren't working right, because in normal operations, sometimes things don't work in the background and it's not a big deal. So anyway, that's the Task Manager, and it has changed, and will be changing. Access to it will be changing. So this is a good article. There's an efficiency mode. It's a new feature of Task Manager. And did I do this? No, I didn't. Sorry about that, folks. You can hide labels in the efficiency mode. It's something that also exists in Windows 10 in the form of echo mode, but it has been redesigned here to be a front and center in the next task manager. Efficiency mode lets you limit the access of an app or process has to system resources, helping to not only reduce the strain on your CPU and other hardware, but it can also help you reduce power consumption. Again, I'm using a desktop, so the power consumption is more for a laptop, but you can switch a running process to this special mode by selecting it and then clicking the efficiency mode button, or by right-clicking and selecting efficiency mode. Any process running in efficiency mode can be identified by a green leaf icon next to them. And there's some other things that Task Manager does. You can also change the appearance now. If you have dark mode enabled in Windows 11, you'll be immediately noticed that is supported by Task Manager. And it's not possible to enable or disable dark mode just for Task Manager. It simply uses the system settings. And there's some new keyboard shortcuts for Task Manager. And there's some information on monitoring performance. A lot of you never open Task Manager and don't need to. But some of us who are a little bit more inclined to take a look at this sort of thing, it's good to know what Task Manager can do. On that note, I'll take a break here and see if there are any comments, questions. Nope. All right. And let's go ahead and go back to sharing. And I'm going to go to the next item. I alluded to this earlier, and Bob mentioned it too. Phishing has been the main driver behind most big security breaches over the past few weeks, including the LastPass, Uber, and Rockstar Games. While steering safe from phishing involves a lot of common sense, there are ways for tech to help you, such as the new feature in the Windows Smart Screen. Microsoft announced a new feature for Microsoft Defender Smart Screen called Enhanced Phishing Protection, which warns people if they're entering a known password into an unsecured application or file. This feature is present in Windows 11's latest 22H2. And it can help you take care of your passwords in 3 different ways. If you visit a malicious site on any Chromium browser, including Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, Smart Screen will alert you if you type your password in a non-password field and give you instructions to change it. Smart Screen can also warn you if you're reusing your Microsoft password on other accounts or services and prompt you to change it if it's the case. Finally, the feature will alert you if you're storing your passwords in plain text, like in Microsoft Office or Notepad, since that can result in your password being stolen. The new feature is intended for PCs managed by a school or workplace, but it may roll out more widely to normal PCs in the future. The computer must also be running the latest build of Windows 11. And to get to the Task Manager, there hasn't been a way to have a shortcut to get it. And Microsoft's latest opt-in update brings in some cool new features and bug fixes for the OS. And one of them is return the Task Manager back to its rightful home on the Windows taskbar. And that's what I showed you. I don't have it yet. Users that subscribed to the dev channel of Windows Insider Updates, and Bob is one of those, will find a new option that when you right click on the taskbar, and again, I showed you, mine only says taskbar settings. Bob and others that are testing it, it'll also say Task Manager. And some more substantial updates also are coming. Behaviors on the widgets board can now be adjusted. The task manager can be summoned by right-clicking on the taskbar, which we just mentioned, and the snipping tool automatically saves screenshots now. So there are more changes coming. The next article is called Senior's Guide to Make Windows Comfortable. I don't agree with everything they talk about, but let's take a look. As a senior citizen who's having trouble using your Windows PC, do you feel like it's too complicated and that you won't do anything about it? You're not alone. A lot of seniors feel this way. Modern technology can be confusing for old age people. Yeah, and that's us. And it can be hard to keep up with the ever-changing landscape. We don't like change. But there are some things you can do to make your Windows PC more comfortable to use. In this blog post, we will give you some tips of what they think will help you. One of them is disable password or PIN on startup. I don't recommend that. Some of you do it. I don't especially recommend it on a laptop, because if you take that laptop on a trip and someone steals it, they can get right on and they have complete access to everything on your computer. So you really need to make sure you do have a password or a PIN on startup. But this article tells you how to turn that off if you so desire. Again, I don't recommend it. Even on my desktop in my house, and I live alone, I make sure that I have to sign in every time I boot up and every time I log out of Windows. But the next item is make your mouse pointer larger. I think you see my pointer, it is larger, and that's something that you can do. And where you do it is you go into Windows settings and then accessibility. And then you go to, let's see where it tells us, mouse pointer and touch. So let's go back there. Under mouse pointer. And here you can change the color of it, the style of it, and the size of it. You can make it much bigger, you can make it smaller. So that's where you go. So it's under accessibility, mouse pointer, and touch to change the settings. And there it is, accessibility, mouse pointer, and touch. So they give you a visual if you don't remember how to do it from my video from this program. You can go back into that article and it'll tell you just where to do it and what to do. You can increase the font size. If you have trouble reading the text in your screen, you can increase the font size so it's easier to read. To do this, again, you go to accessibility and then text size. So let's go back here and let's go back to accessibility. Right at the top, text size. You can change it. I'm not going to change mine because it changes it everywhere. It takes a while for it to do it. But I was helping one of my neighbors and their laptop, and they had everything in much larger icons and larger text because they had trouble seeing. So that's something you might want to consider if you have trouble reading your screen. And let's go back to this. And again, they show you exactly where to do it in this. You can make the icons appear larger. You can have large icons, extra large icons. So you're going to have less on the screen, but you're going to have things bigger. So you might have to scroll to the side or scroll down, and you aren't going to have as much on your screen. But if you can see better, it's a good, it might help you utilize your computer.
Huey,
Yes.
when you make the icons larger, you don't have fewer icons. you have fewer per row. So it clutters up your desktop with lots more icon space being utilized, because your icons don't disappear and there's no scrolling on the main screen. It just makes the icon and instead of being able to have 15 or 20 in a row, you could only have 10 in a row, and then it goes to the next row. So if you have lots of icons on your computer on the main screen, it's going to really fill that thing up.
Yeah, so if I changed mine, this would be probably
It'd take up the whole
Yeah.
screen, probably. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you. Whoops, wrong thing here. We're on Edge. And you can increase the size in browsers. Now, when you're on in your browser, and let me just, because I'm using this, so let's open up, I'm going to minimize this for a moment. I'm going to open up this, and anytime you're on a screen, all you have to do is hold the control key down and hit plus, and you can see up here, I'll go do that again. I'll do plus again. It shows me now I'm at 125%. And if I do it again, I'm at 150%. Now 175. And to reduce it, if I hit the control minus, and I'm back to 100%. That's on, I think, all of the browsers, at least all the ones that I use. You can do that very easily.
Also
So-
use your scroll mouse wheel
Yeah,
up
that will
or
work.
down.
Yep. Come back here. So you can, you here it is in a larger, but you can change your browser. So as you're looking at something, if it's in very small print and you want to look at it bigger, you want to do a screenshot of it, and you want just a certain paragraph, you make it a lot bigger, you'll get a better screenshot, and it'll be in a larger print. And then you can always reduce it. You can declutter your desktop. If your desktop is cluttered with shortcuts and files, it can be difficult. What you're looking for, you can declutter it by deleting shortcuts that you don't use and by moving files into folders. And so what does that mean? Let's go back to my desktop again. If it's got a little arrow on it, that's a shortcut. That means if you delete it, it doesn't delete the program, it doesn't delete anything, it just deletes a shortcut to that particular program. I don't need this, so I'm going to right mouse click and tell it to delete it. And it's gone. Now, the other thing that it said is that you can create a folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to new folder, and I'm going to call it WinSIG test. And I guess I put wins test text. And I'm going to take this file and drop it in there, and take this file and drop it in there. So now if I look in there, oh, it opened it up on my other screen here, but you can see that they're right there. So you can organize your desktop, and then if you decide you don't want that anymore, when we open this again, and again, I put it over here, my other screen, there it is. You can just take this out and move it back to here. Okay. I lied.
What happened there, Huey, was your desktop is technically part of your OneDrive. And when you copied the file or moved it into that folder, it started synchronizing it into the folder. That's why
Yeah.
you had two copies.
No. Wrong thing here. Okay, I got one of them out, and now the other one can go out. There it goes, and it goes away. And then I can delete the folder if I want. By the way, in Windows 11, there isn't a delete here, and it took me a long time to get used to the fact that it wasn't in the list. It's a trash can at the top, and that will go away. Okay, so that sums up that article, and let's see if there's any questions about anything. So I am going to, when I just covered up my stop share. Okay, up to this point, any comments, questions? Everybody's being quiet. Stephen?
Yeah, I either I misunderstood or you misunderstood the business of removing your password on or your PIN on startup. Seems to me that meant that in case you left your password on, so that if someone stole your computer, then they would already have the password. It seems to me that was a protective feature that that made sure that you had to use your password. It wouldn't remember, in other words. So, and you said you didn't recommend it. I thought it would be just the reverse of that.
No, if you turn it off, that means anybody that opens and starts your computer is in your Windows and ready to open up programs.
I thought it said delete password, or I don't remember the exact word. I thought it said delete password or PIN on startup. In other words, if you left your password open, then it would automatically make sure that it wasn't open when you started your computer. That way it would be a protective feature. I maybe misunderstood.
Once you delete the need for the password, and only the person who currently has a password can do that on the system. So, but once you use that option, then you are no longer asked to sign in when. Okay.
Yeah.
So therefore, anybody who gets it, it's automatic. It's actually what it's doing. It's automatically signing in for you. That's what it's doing. Okay. Now, one thing to remember, they say that this makes it easier for you, but you better know what you're doing in order to make the change. It's not an easy change, especially in Windows 11. There's a lot of steps you have to go through in order to make that available in the first place. And if you have a problem entering your password, I don't think you'll have the ability to make the change.
And
Thanks,
people,
that clarifies it for me. Thank you very much.
and people who have a password manager, a lot of them have it automatically open up when you start your computer, which is not a good idea.
Yeah,
So-
yeah. Many of mine are
So if you got
automatically
the,
there. Yeah,
if you got a password manager and no password to get into the computer, they have the keys to the kingdom.
right. Yeah.
A comment on decluttering and cluttering your desk. You know that all of the files that you leave as files on your desktop have to be completely reloaded when you boot your system. So that slows the boot system down, and it's better to put everything as just shortcuts instead of files.
Absolutely. Walter?
Yeah, I use a program called Fences to declutter my desktop. I have 3 or 4 fences on the desktop. All I do is hover over them. It opens a fence, and then I can click on whatever icons or programs are in there.
I used to use Fences, and I think it's a great program. It's only like about $10, and it does do a great job organizing your screen. I was trying to limit my desktop, excuse me, but it's gotten away from me. But it's still not as bad as it used to be. And I've got some friends that the whole screen is nothing but shortcuts and programs and files on the desktop, and that you really need to try to declutter. And yes, as Michael said, when you start up your computer, all of those have to load, and it does take resources as well as time. So it's a good idea not to have a lot on your desktop. So one thing I like about Chromebooks is they don't have them on the desktop. Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, one way of getting fences is to get the full object desktop from StarDoc. That also lets you have tabs on your folders and your programs, which is kind of handy too, which will come with Windows 11 eventually, but it's not there yet.
Yeah, fences does come from a company called StarDoc, STARDOCK, and you can download it from there and purchase it from them. And they also have, that's where the program, what was it called? Something 11, Win 11, is it, or Start 11?
It's Start 11.
Start 11, where you can set up your Windows 10 to look like 11 or 11 to look like 10 or earlier. Okay. Looking at the time, we're good.
One thing to keep in mind, even if you use StarDoc, if you put all those things into those fences, that still has to load. Okay.
Yep.
The
Yep.
whole idea of not having it more on your desktop is to increase or decrease the time it takes to load and start your system.
Yeah, but there are some of us on here right now that like to have a lot of things on their desktop. So if you're so inclined, at least it makes it look neater.
So the solution for that is to use shortcuts and folders and put your shortcuts into folders on your desktop. That'll declutter. Plus, you'll just load shortcuts when you're doing the startup.
Yeah, and again, am I sharing?
Oh.
No. Let me share again. This little arrow and the little corner of these boxes are all shortcuts. You'll see almost all of mine are shortcuts. I've got a few documents that I parked on my desktop that probably shouldn't be, but I just have a few things like this. Me and my Hopalong Cassidy shirt.
In the Windows settings, there is also a setting that gets rid of that arrow. So you really don't know what's a shortcut and what isn't. And when you get rid of that arrow, it can really, really raise havoc, because you don't know if you're getting rid of a shortcut, which is perfectly okay, or whether you're eliminating an actual program. So be careful.
Why people don't like that little arrow there,
I don't know. But there is a setting that you can go ahead and get rid of it.
Okay, report. Zoom is working on a new email and calendar apps. Just what we need, another email program and another calendar program. But they're trying to widen what they do. Zoom is reportedly working on a new email and calendar apps to better compete with Microsoft 365 and Google's Workspace. The information is reporting the new apps could be announced as soon as November, according to a person familiar with the company's plan. Company spent the better part of 2 years quietly developing the new services. And they refer to it as Zmail and Zcal. The report reads, it's certainly an interesting development for Zoom, which revealed earlier this week a new logo and some products rebranding. Notably, the company has rebranded Zoom Chat to Zoom Team Chat, and the product now seems ready to go head-to-head with Slack and Microsoft Teams. What we're striving for is to becoming the operating system for your workday, Zoom CFO Kelly Steckelberg said in an interview with Fast Company earlier this week. Zoom does video meetings really well, and it became a really popular tool with the pandemic. However, Microsoft Teams and Google Meet have since caught up pretty quickly, and companies paying for Zoom may no longer see enough value in the product. That's why Zoom may have no choice but to pivot and become an all-in-one productivity solution with email, calendar, and chat apps. However, it certainly won't be easy for the company to compete with Microsoft's 365 and Google Workspace, which provide great value for companies ready to invest in those productivity ecosystems. So an interesting thing, and it might give us another reader for our email. And I'm not sure whether we need one or not, but it's certainly an interesting concept. I haven't noticed this, but apparently it has come out, and YouTube is start showing more unskippable ads to some users. Add 1 of 10 instead of 2. And they're making it so you can't skip them.
You're using
And
premium, Huey?
I don't have premium, and this is
Oh.
a reason to go to premium.
Yep.
Bob, can you tell us what premium gives you?
It gives me no ads. That's what it gives me. Unfortunately, some of the developers or some of the ones that are putting out videos, I'm not one of the ones that's doing it, but they're embedding the ads right within the actual video. And there's no way that Google can prevent those things because it's the person who creates the video that also talks about an ad. So you can't skip those things. You'd have to do that manually. But for almost everything, if you are paying for a premium subscription to YouTube, especially if you're watching movies, there are no ads. And if you're watching a video, there are no ads.
Yeah, I've noticed now that some of the videos I've been watching, they'll break in 2 or 3 times in the course of the video and start playing ads. So it's, and it's, I think it's what, about $11 a month for the premium?
Yeah, maybe a little bit more than that now, but that's what it costs per month.
So
So
it's not cheap, but boy,
no,
the ads are really, it's a moneymaker for YouTube. So that's why they want to charge a lot, so you don't see the ads, so they can make up that money. But it is,
it depends on how much
yeah,
YouTube
here it is,
you
$11.99
watch.
a month
Yeah.
subscription. Lets you download videos to watch on the go and also listen to videos in the background on mobile. You can't download videos, even though there's a download button. If you push it, it'll say, this is a premium service. And I don't think you can download everything. And I think it only downloads it in such a way that they guard it so you can't just download it and then start trading it around and using it.
Hey, Hewie, there is a trick that I use. I hope you can't hear that vacuum cleaner going in the background. But, if you know what you're going to watch, you know how long it is, you start it ahead of time and let it run all the way through with the ads and everything while you're doing something else. And then catch it at the end, just move your little cursor back to the beginning. And it's the second time you run through, I have found the ads have already been submitted and you don't see them. So on YouTube, at least, I've done that because I do record them. I have a device that allows me to record them directly. And so I want to record them without the ads. And that's worked.
Yeah, and there are some third-party programs out there, but Google doesn't allow them.
No, mine just goes into a DVD recorder. It's the way I do it. And I have to go through a little converter device, but it works just fine. And then I can go back and edit them, actually, if I want to keep them and record them from my hard drive to a DVD and save them.
Okay, any other
4K.
comments?
4K video downloader.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it because they're liable to ding us.
Yeah, I'm not mentioning any more than that either.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments, questions? Okay, let's get back. We've got a little bit of time left. Whoops, I got to share my screen first. And that's that article. This article, to me, is kind of misleading. USB's confusing names and numbers are being simplified. Let's move down here. The USB standard often gets a bad rap because of the overly confusing labels and brands, but it might be about to get easier very soon. The USB Implementers Forum, or USB-IF, has announced a series of new branding guidelines that should, in theory, make things simpler to read. As per the new guidelines announced, the USB-IF is dropping most of its older branding, continuing the culmination of an effort that began last year. For one, the super speed name, which was first used by USB 3.0 when it was released, is no more. Neither is USB 3, USB 3.2, even USB 4, for that matter. But of course, USB 1 and 2 and C and all those things, they aren't going to be eliminated. And they don't say that in this article. Instead, the consumer facing the name will just be USB and the exact speed. Instead of referring to the USB ports or devices by a version number, the USB-IF is instead shifting to naming that reflects the actual specs rather than having confusing version numbers. So let's take a look at what they're talking about. I thought there was a picture of that in this article, and there doesn't seem to be, or they may have cut it out in this. So let's see if I can go back here and see if, yeah, this picture here. Well, let's do this. You'll notice that they're all they're USB and then the speeds, but I don't think any of these are the USB. A lot of the current ones we use, these are going to be the future ones that will have USB, and then it'll have 20 gigabits, 40 gigabits, 10 gigabits, and 5 gigabits. And then here, I can't quite read what that is, but it's 40 and 240 watt. And, oh, that is gigabit, 240 watt, 60 watt. So they're going to be more descriptive, but it's not going to be retroactive, and they're not going to go back and start renaming what we're using today. Let's see if it mentions this way. Yeah, this way, super speed USB 5 gigabits per second and super speed USB 10 gigabits per second are now just USB gigabits, 5 gigabits and USB 10 gigabits. While USB 4 branding is shifting to the USB 20 gigabits and so on. So if a cable supports a specific charging wattage, they'll also have to list it. So it's going to be interesting what they do. And it's going to be more confusion in the beginning until we get used to the new names. This article is on QR codes. If QR codes are complex, I know Jim and Chris Gould use them extensively and create them and use them. Ever wonder how a QR code works? No, me neither, but it's a low-key fascinating warning. There's some extremely nerdy stuff here. But there's patterns and alignment patterns, timing patterns, format information, data, and error correction, and it's by color to show you what it does. And the quick response code, that's what QR stands for, is quick response, was invented by a subsidiary of Toyota to track parts across the manufacturing process. Barcodes were proving inadequate, and they can only be read at certain angles and didn't store much data relative to their size. The QR code solves those issues and more. And that's what a QR code looks like. And that's what a barcode looks like. The most distinctive thing about a QR code is there are these cube shapes called finder patterns that help your reader detect the code. The smaller fourth cube, the alignment pattern, orientates the code so it can be read at any angle, and the reader will still know which way is up. By reader, it means the camera or whatever QR code software. So you got the finder patterns are these three, and then you got an alignment pattern here, and then a quiet zone should be 4 times the size of a single block. You probably never noticed, but every QR code has these alternating black and white dots called timing patterns. These tell the reader how big a single module is and how big the whole QR code is, known as the version. Version 1, smallest version, version 40, the biggest. And that's these dots here. And there's version 2 and version 40 has 40 little dots. Information about the format is stored in those 2 strips near the finder patterns. It's stored twice, so it's readable even when QR codes are partially obscured. You'll notice that this is a recurring theme. And the format information stores information about error correction and masking in those dots as well. This stores 3 crucial pieces of information: a mask, error correction level, error correction format. So I know these sound super boring, but they're actually pretty interesting. And so you've got error correction level, you got masking pattern, and you got a format. This is a little bit nerdy, but for those of you who would like to know how things work, this is what you see. So there's rhymes and reasons for this information. So even if a QR code is damaged, it's still readable from some of those things. And you can play with this page if you want and try some of the patterns. So I thought it was an interesting article just to know that it exists and why certain things are in those QR codes. And then it says, for absolute nerds who made it here, a fun fact, perhaps the coolest thing about QR codes is that DensoWave, the company that invented them, never exercised their patent and released the technology for free. So that's interesting. And this article, I thought, was a little bit interesting because a lot of us still do this. You can stop turning your lights off to save money. Well, most of us are using light bulbs that have LEDs in them. And let's go back to this here. No, I'm going to turn it on. We're kind of obsessed with turning off household lights to save money. And it's a habit most of us have, but it turns out it's not really the money-saving power move we think it is. And here's why you can stop. Oh, why am I getting this? Let's be perfectly clear right out of the gate. If you turn off a device in your home that uses electricity, no matter how big or small the device, you'll of course save money. It doesn't matter if the device is a giant power-hungry gaming PC or a tiny nightlight in the bathroom. If it isn't using electricity, then naturally you aren't paying for that electricity. But when it comes to serious energy savings, however, LEDs completely change the game. The efficiency of LED lighting compared to traditional incandescent lighting is staggering. If you're still using a lot of your old light bulbs because you don't want to change them because they're still working, might not be a good idea. It might be time to start replacing those with LED lights. Back in the day, it made sense to turn off lights when you left the room. our parents weren't out of line to tell us to turn the lights off and sigh when we didn't. The total wattage of all the incandescent lights in a big room could easily exceed the wattage of a desktop computer under load, and there was an associated penalty on your electric bill and your wallet. LEDs use a small fraction of the energy traditional incandescent bulbs do. Such a small fraction, in fact, that depending upon the bulbs in question, you can power anywhere from a half a dozen to a dozen LED bulbs with the power required by one incandescent bulb you're replacing. It helps to look at some actual concrete numbers to put it all in perspective. Let's say, for the sake of example, there are 10 light bulbs on the ground floor of your home that you would like to keep on for security. You just like the warm lighting in the evening or whatever the reason might be. Let's say you leave them on for 5 hours every night. Suppose you have 10 traditional 60-watt incandescent light bulbs. They consume a total of 600 watts per hour, or 0.6 kilowatt hours, and you can multiply that by the cost of your local utility charges per kilowatt hour. But the U.S. average national is about 12 cents per kilowatt hour. So we'll use that. Each evening when you leave those 10 bulbs on after work, it costs you 36 cents. Per month, that's $10.96. Per year, that's $131.49. That's not early retirement money, but it's certainly a chunk of money that could have been spent on something like 6 to 12 months of your favorite streaming service, or the heat bill in the winter, or any number of things. Of course, there's an ad in there for the bulbs. Now, let's say you have a 10 60-watt equivalent LED bulbs used under the same conditions, 5 hours per day in the evening after work. Most 60-watt equivalent bulbs use 8 or 9 watts of energy, so we will be using 8.5 watts for our calculation. Now your per energy use isn't 600 watts, it's 85 watts. At the U.S. national average energy cost, running those 10 bulbs for 5 hours after work costs you 5 cents per day, $1.55 per month, and only $18.62 per year. In fact, to get even close to the energy expense of leaving 10 incandescent bulbs on in the evening, you need to leave roughly 70 equivalent LED bulbs on. For many people, that would mean turning on every single light in their house, including the porch lights, garage lights, and even the attic lights too. So you can use your lights guilt-free. So the point of this exercise isn't to encourage you to be wasteful for the sake of being wasteful, but efficient LEDs are not, for there's no reason to leave the attic or closet lights on 24/7. But with the efficiency of LED bulbs, flipping lights on and off in a room, you'll be returning to shortly, or not leaving accent lights on around your house when you really like the cozy vibe they provide, just doesn't make a lot of sense. So don't fret about wasting too much power setting up smart lights to make winter feel less gloomy. So to run a 60-watt equivalent LED bulb is about 1/10 of a cent per hour, a tenth of a cent. At that price point, you're talking 1,000 hours of operation to hit $1. So it's interesting. So if you're not using LED lights, you really need to consider that.
And you can buy LED lights at the Dollar Tree.
Yep. Yeah, and in fact, finding incandescent bulbs, I don't think you can do that anymore. But a lot of us bought a lot of bulbs in the past and have them around the house waiting for one of the bulbs to burn out. And it's a good idea to just discard them and go to LED lights. It'll cost you less to do that than it will to save money by just using an old light bulb. Mike, you're first.
Two comments. First, we were all supposed to go to these curly fluorescent bulbs, what, about 8, 10 years ago, save energy. And they did save a little bit of energy, but then when one broke and shattered all over the place, we actually found we had a hazardous situation and we had to call in the hazmat team in order to have them clean up the mess. Most people that had them didn't bother doing that, but we were concerned about the mercury vapors that they involved. So when LED bulbs came out, we went ahead and replaced all the curly fluorescents with LEDs that theoretically were guaranteed for 5 years. And we found out that some of them didn't even last a year. Maybe it was because they were early versions. But the big replacement in our home, which I stuck in chat, is we found that the technology was then available for tubular LED light assemblies that would replace the tubular fluorescents, which we had in our kitchen, utility room, and 3 bathrooms. So they did really cut down on our power usage, and they have been lasting, and they've given us the light that we used to get from the tubular fluorescents.
Thank you, Mike. Donna, comment, question?
Yeah. Yes. What about smart lights? You know how you turn them on and off? Are they LEDs or are they something different? I'm not clear. Anybody know?
I'm quite sure they're LEDs.
Yeah, I've got one in the attic, and it is an LED.
They're LEDs.
Okay, thank you. I just wasn't sure. All right.
Tony?
I see that these LED lights come in different temperatures. Like one is warm at 2,700 degrees and another one is like 5,000 degrees for like daylight. And I believe that excessive use of the daylight bulb is bad for the eyes. Anybody know about that?
In the fluorescent lights that we chose, we got them from Amazon. There was a menu of the different brightnesses, and we chose one down from the maximum, which worked out pretty well. It gave us pretty much the same intensity that we had with the fluorescents, but it wasn't the maxed out brightness.
Like someone said, I got some bulbs at the Dollar Tree, and when I used one of them, it was awfully bright. And then I switched to found a 2,700 warm version, and I went to that. So I wouldn't want to do a lot of reading or heavy use of one of those bright ones until someone told me, and I'm not sure if the accuracy, that they're bad for your eyes.
I think if you use them early in the morning, it stimulates melatonin. If you don't go out into the sunlight, so you sleep better at night. You may not want to use them all day, but I would say it's beneficial if used early in the morning.
Okay, any other comments, questions? We got a couple of minutes left. On anything.
We changed the light bulbs that we had in our kitchen to LEDs, and not even counting the savings in electricity, but just the fact things now actually you can see them, and they don't have the shadows that they used to have when you used the light bulbs. So LEDs are a great improvement in the lighting.
I have 2 bulbs that I know I have not changed to LED. One is the little bulb that's in my over the stove, I don't know what you call the hood. And I don't know, I guess they probably have LED lights for that now. And my refrigerator light, I have never changed. And that they should have LED lights now too. Does anyone know?
Yes, they do make utility type LED bulbs. In the old hood we got before we replaced our microwave, we had replaced the incandescent bulb when it burned out with one of the LEDs. It was sort of a tubular instead of a round, and it just screwed into the same socket.
in our bathrooms over the mirror, there are, I think, 5 small bulbs. They've been there since we bought this place 13 years ago. No, 16 years ago. We've never changed them. I know they're not LEDs. And they've
Yeah, I
also
changed-
never burned out.
Yeah, I did change mine to LED. So Mead, you're next. You're
You're
muted.
muted.
You're
You
muted.
are muted.
I'm sorry, let me start again. If you replace an LED where you have a dimmer, you will get a flicker. I wonder if anybody can spread a light on that. We had the electrician come in to replace the dimmers after you replace the bulbs. Yes. Go ahead,
Not
Jerry.
all dimmers will work with all LEDs, and it's even in some of those that claim they will. When you read the fine print, you may have some difficulties. I was a bit of
My
a surprise to me
experience-
when I went to replace them.
Okay, that's
My
something that-
experience on that is the problem is not the dimmer, it's the bulb. If you want to be able to dim an LED bulb, you have to get an LED bulb that is specifically made to be dimmable. The ones that are not made to be dimmable will not work well with any dimmer switch you may have.
If you look at the instructions on the dimmers, that you need both a bulb that is dimmable as well as the dimmer that will be compatible with them.
And that's not been my experience because I've switched to all LED light bulbs. And the ones that I want to be dimmable, some of them have dimmers that are ancient at this point. And as long as the bulb supports it, it seems to work fine. That's been my experience.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
I just wanted to mention something. Mike brought up the lifetime of the bulbs. What some people don't realize is that the electronics in the base of the bulb put out a fair amount of heat, and heat damages LEDs. So if you have a light that's in an enclosed fixture or something like that, that heat will damage and shorten the life of the LED. Whereas if you have them in something like a desk lamp where there's lots of air circulation and you get rid of the heat, then they'll last much longer. And the bulbs have gotten a lot better at handling that. But anytime you've got an enclosed fixture or a can in the roof where the heat's going to build up around the light, you're going to shorten the life of the bulb.
Thanks, Mark. Tom? And then Stu will be the last comment.
It's important to note that LED bulbs, almost all of them have switching power supplies in them, which generates RF or radio frequencies. And I had just had a garage door and door opener replaced, and the instructions specifically state that you cannot use a standard LED bulb in there because a standard LED bulb, and you have to remember, these are all made in China and made very cheap, will cause interference that will cause the receiver in the garage door opener not to receive the signals from the transmitter. However, there are certain LED bulbs that are engineered and made to reduce the RF enough that the garage door opener will operate. Something else to consider, if you're like me and you're a cable TV never and you receive your TV over the air, is that certain LED bulbs, again, because of that switching power supply, can generate interference that will block your reception of TV signals. There was an article in TV Technology magazine a couple of years ago. One of the engineers was watching TV and all of a sudden his reception stopped, and he was trying to evaluate why that happened. He remembered that his wife had pulled in and opened the garage door opener, and he remembered he had just replaced the incandescent bulb with an LED bulb. And when he replaced that LED bulb with an incandescent, it did no longer interrupted his TV reception.
Interesting. Thank you. Stu, last question, comment.
Yeah, I have a question on the LED. We have a lot of hi-hats in the house. Are there LEDs that have the same base that normally goes into these flood hi-hats that you can replace them with an LED?
I have lots of hi-hats in both of my homes, and they don't require anything special. They use standard hi-hat sockets.
Okay. How much did it cost? Can I ask you?
You can ask, but I can't answer because most of my bulbs were changed years ago. My guess is that the bulbs won't be changed at this point until after I die.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to remind you that the CFCS main meeting with Judy Tallur doing the presentation is next. And this has been the Central Florida Computer Society and the Sarasota Technology User Group, WinSIG, or Windows Special Interest Group, for Sunday, October 9th, 2022. I'm Hewie Poplock, and thank you everyone for joining. And for those watching the video, thank you. And I hope you learned something and got some information today.